Welcome to our Family Talk video on transitions at college. I'm your host, Rebecca Downing. I'm the Senior Director of Communications and Parent Initiatives at Colgate. We're here today to talk about the important transitions that college students go through. We will highlight typical changes and challenges that students face. We will tell you about the resources that Colgate has in place to support them. And we will discuss ways that parents, family members, and other caregivers can help their students make the most of their college years. Joining me today are two of Colgate's wonderful staff members from our Dean of the College Division. They work every day to support students through all aspects of their college experience. Sarah Jones, hi Sarah, is our Associate Dean for Administrative Advising. And Kerra Hunter is Associate Dean and Director of International Student Services. Hey, Kerra. So welcome. Thank you for being here. So to get the conversation started, I just want to mention, as family members start to think about all the things their student needs to do to get ready for college, we do have another Family Talk video called Preparing for Independence. I encourage everyone to check that out on our website if you haven't already. Today, we're going to be talking about what happens once students get to campus and what they will experience in the first weeks and months of college. So let's start with that first week of college and the top things that you both see students encountering during this time when so much is new.
Yeah, I'm happy to get us started. Thanks so much for having us here today, Rebecca. Like every orientation at every single college and university across the country, orientation at Colgate is a fun and exciting time for Colgate students. But it also comes with a lot of trepidation and a lot of what ifs. I think it's a very common experience for new students to be really imagining orientation as this be all and end all, make or break experience that is going to either set them up for success for the next for their time until graduation or not. And really, it is not that. I think what's most important to know about orientation is it is meant to give students a number of tools and resources and information on how to navigate life here at Colgate. It's meant to introduce them to faculty members and staff members who are going to help them in their journey. It is meant to have them meet as many peers as it's possible that they can meet over the course of 4 days. But it is absolutely nothing like what a semester is like at Colgate. And that's in part because it is so unstructured. Or it is so structured that it is so unlike the normal structure of the semester. We have students getting up and going to programs starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the programs go until late into the night because we don't want students sitting by themselves in their residence hall. We want them to get out there and engage with campus and engage with their peers. That being said, it's really hard to meet people and get to know people. And so all of our students are coming from experience where many of them haven't had to make new friends in a very long time. It could have been middle school. It could have been high school. And unless students change schools while they were in high school, they probably haven't had to do a lot of work to make friends. So it can be awkward to introduce yourself to someone you don't know and try to get to know them in when there's a million other things going around you. So we try to use that time during orientation to give students opportunities to be meeting people in small groups and big groups and around shared and common interests, whether those are academic or co-curricular or just fun activities. But you can't make friends in one day or one interaction or even many interactions over several days. It takes time to establish friendships. And so I think my advice to everyone watching is, as you're supporting your student during the first couple of days on campus, reminding them that the structure of orientation is such that it doesn't mimic what a normal semester is like. It is going to have its up and its downs. It's going to be long days, and they may meet some really interesting people during it and feel great about the foundations that they've started to lay, or they may not necessarily have that experience, but as soon as they get into the classroom on that first day of classes, may start to build those relationships in different ways. So keep that in mind as your students are preparing to come to campus. Kerra, what would you like to add?
Trying to find the unmute button. So it's arrival to campus. It's the first week, and it's everything beyond that. And I do really want to go back to Sarah's point about making friends. Part of what we've seen a bit of is, especially with or age group and our students, is they haven't really had to try to make friends in person for a very long time. And so if, parents or family members are able to encourage students to get out of their rooms when they get here, to attend campus events, whether it be residence hall events or large campus events, getting yourself out your room and allowing yourself to make some face-to-face connections with people is one of the best things they can do to make friends.
That's a really good point. I sometimes hear from parents, I'm worried about my student. They say that other people are running around in packs and they don't have their pack yet, and that they think that something's wrong with them. They're not making friends, they're not connecting. And I remind them or ask them to remind their student that probably everyone's feeling the way they're feeling, and they may have just not found their pack yet, but they're not the only one. They're not alone. That there's time to make friends, and they'll make the good friends that they want to make and need to make. It just means getting out of their comfort zone and making an overture.
And we often see students, right? And they take the first couple days and they connect with whoever's closest by them and say, Kerra, I like you, you're nice, we're going to be best friends, right? And now Kerra and I stay together 24/7 for the next 3 weeks, and we do everything together, or we may be in a pack of 5 that does that because we just came together right on that first day. And then it turns out that both Kerra and I take a look around and say, well, you know what? We don't necessarily have that much in common, and maybe we don't get along as well as I get along with this person in my class, or this person who joined the same club I was interested in. And Kerra, yeah, it's been great to know you, but some of these instantaneous friendships naturally drift apart as people come to make real friendships over shared experiences and shared interests, and getting to know people better. And so when your student is saying, well, everyone already has their best friends, we can pretty much guarantee that those groups that are running around in packs of 5 or packs of 8 aren't going to be best friends forever. It's just a wanting to feel like you're connected to a small group. And that's why we take time and care in putting together groups during orientation, because we want every student to feel like they have a place where they belong. Those groups continue to meet during orientation and past orientation. So so every student should have some connection, but to know that sometimes, real friendships and relationships, or all of the time, they take some time to develop.
Thanks so much. I was thinking about another aspect of the first week. You talked about how orientation is so packed, right? And then there's the first day of classes, and then like the normal semester schedule starts. Can you talk a little bit about what students encounter with learning to manage a college schedule when there isn't anybody in the, around to tell them where they're supposed to go next?
Yeah, this is very different than high school. And certainly no one is checking to make sure that you get to your 8:20 class on time. No one is setting your alarm for you. Students typically do not have classes back to back to back to back. They may have a class and then they may have an hour or 2 hour gap before they have another class. And then they may have 1 hour, one class in the afternoon and several hour gap before kind of the next thing on their schedule. And so I think one of the things that's really important to student success in my mind is students establishing a schedule, right? Trying to wake up at the same time every day, even if they don't have class at the same time each morning, because that's only going to help them in the long run. Trying to use the breaks in your schedule as specific times when you do a reading for a class, or you catch up on your notes for this class or what have you. Because oftentimes students are like, oh, great, I have nothing to do for 2 hours. And then they look up and 2 hours are gone and all they've been doing is kind of scrolling on their phone when they could have certainly been a lot more productive, and getting things done during the day means that can be hours and hours of less homework that you have to do after dinner, which is a nice feeling to come out of dinner knowing that you don't have 4 hours of homework in front of you. You may only have one, and you have some time to socialize and see what people are up to and do some fun things.
So I'm going to jump in and throw out the word resources, and I'm sure we'll say the word a couple of times, during our discussion. But we're talking about orientation and the things they learn during that packed week. During orientation, a lot of those resources on how to schedule, how to manage time, how to make connections, are a part of those orientation discussion. And so that's the first resource that they're introduced to before classes even start. And so, I want to challenge our students and, of course, our parents to encourage our students to pay attention during those orientation sessions when folks are introducing the resources that will help them to manage their college schedule and their time. And so, again, we're in the first week of college. We fully recognize that everybody will get it perfectly that first week, and that's okay. And I am 100% in support, of a parent who, for that first week, wants to help them to get that structure in place. For the first week, maybe just the second week, calling them to get them in the habit. It takes, 21 days to form a habit. We're okay with the first 2 weeks even helping them get that schedule in place, as long as there is that reminder that after that, you're a college student. We're no longer going to call you. You need to have this routine set. You need to have your schedule set. You need to be reaching out to your resources on campus as an adult, and getting yourself out of bed to classes.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Another thing that's so new about college is just figuring out how to get around, navigate the campus, find where things are, figure out what that means for their schedule. Maybe they live over here, but then they have class here and then class here. Can you talk a little bit about what challenges you see students encounter with getting around, and what are your top tips for parents in like helping them figure that part out?
This is where, again, using your resource, every new student, when they start, whether they're a first-year student or a transfer student, is assigned a link. And a link is an upper level student who has been selected specifically to help students navigate these first couple of weeks. And so during orientation, they're going to take them around campus to show them all the different buildings that they may have classes in. They're going to show them how to use the Cruiser, which is our free shuttle system that runs around campus to the residence halls, downtown to where the bookstore is, and certainly help students get a sense of just how long it can take to get from one class to the other, or what those breaks are like in between classes, because sometimes when you do have a class back to back, you need to be spending all that time walking to your next class so that you can make sure that you get there on time. The other great thing about the orientation program is the events are scheduled throughout campus. And so we really use that time to kind of introduce students to all the different parts of campus, so that they're familiar with them when there's an event they want to go to in that building or in that space. And really encouraging students to use the events calendar to see what's going on campus every day, because there's just a great number of really exciting events that are happening, and students need to know that they don't need to have someone with them to go to an event. They should check out things that are interesting to them, because Colgate is going to be what you make of it. And if you wait to have someone invite you to everything that you're going to, you're not going to be kind of writing your own adventure and taking advantage and really pursuing your passions while you're here. And so we want students to use that events calendar the best of their ability to just take advantage of the amazing programs that happen on this campus.
Thanks so much. So another aspect of especially the first week of school and then into the rest of their college career, students start to encounter opportunities to make new choices socially, how they spend their time, nights and weekends. They may be encountering, opportunities to drink alcohol, those sorts of things. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you talk to students about in that realm when it comes to coming to college and the choices they make?
Yeah, I think, our top priority is that students are safe on this campus. We want them to make choices that are safe for them and safe for their peers. I think students should know college can be a great time to reinvent yourself, right? Because nobody knows who you are. And so you can put a lot of time and energy into being kind of the person you think others want you to be, or the person that you actually are. And, Kira and I spend every day, all day, meeting with students and talking to students and assisting students. And I don't think there's a lot of pressure to be kind of the cool kid on campus. I don't think that is what Colgate students are about, or who we are as a campus. I think that individuals who are able to kind of present their authentic self and why they're here and what they're trying to get out of their education and what's important to them and what their values are, I think, have a much easier time kind of finding people who share those values and want those similar and same experiences. And so I think students should think kind of long and hard about, like, why are they here and what do they want to get out of this experience? And like, who are the people that are doing things that are inviting them in and including them and what they have to offer, right? And so, I talk a lot of times to students who might be having a challenging situation with a peer, and really talking about kind of, is this person treating you the way that you would treat them? And and if not, then why is this someone that you're talking to me like they're your friend? Because as you're explaining it to me, this person doesn't seem like they've been treating you like you would be treating them. And so I think that's something to think about. Like, you get to choose who you want to spend your time with, and how are you making those choices, and also setting yourself up to be as successful as possible on this campus. Academics are important here. All of our students did well in high school, and our students want to do well here. And you can't do well if you don't show up prepared for class, or if you don't show up for class. Like, you got to be ready to go day one with your academics.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Kara, do you have anything to add?
Not just the importance of values, and it over the years, they've been home, they've been high school, they've been with family, and their parents have instilled certain values in them, and sometimes it just takes that reminder for some of our students, because there is value in just being yourself, just being your authentic self, not worrying about what anybody else thinks of you, really and truly. What's most important is, how are you demonstrating the values that you've been brought up with, and how are you being true to yourself in this whole experience?
Thank you. So you've both talked a lot about the kinds of conversations that you've had with students on all these various topics that we've covered relating to the first week of college. Is there anything specific that you would want to say that how you can help students, or how can students get to you? How will they know about you so you can help them?
So administrative deans play a big role in orientation. Every new student is assigned an administrative dean. We will send you an email just as orientation starts to introduce ourselves. You will see us throughout orientation in various programs where we're talking specifically about how we connect to the resources on campus, how we can get students connected to the resources on campus. We're meant to be kind of a friendly ear whenever students need any assistance. We want to hear about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we want to help in any way that we can. And so as a new student, while you will change to a different academic advisor when you choose your major, we as your administrative dean is going to stick with you through graduation. And so we want to know why you're here, what you're passionate about, and how things are going. We want to know how we can help when you need any sort of help, because everyone is going to have a bump in the road at some time, whether that's because you get the flu and you don't know what to do, or you get a bad grade on an assignment. That is going to happen to every single student here, or at least every single student I've met. And so we want to help students navigate those ups and downs as best as possible, and help keep a bigger perspective on how this all fits together, and knowing that sometimes those bumps in the road can open up opportunities that students haven't even imagined, that end up being like their thing and what they're all about.
That's great. I mean, it sounds to me like what you're saying is that it would be great if parents can encourage their students to make a connection with their administrative dean off the bat, so they can set up a relationship early on. And then that way, when these things do come up, they know who they can go to. So
Absolutely.
let's shift to the first semester. Kerra, maybe you could talk a little bit about the key things that students typically encounter, the challenges or changes that they're encountering in that first semester that you would want parents to be aware of.
Okay, thank you. I mean, there's a bit, and as I run through my list, Dean Jones, please jump in if I forget anything. First and foremost, first week, first semester, you're away from home. You're away from, students are away from the comfort and the familiarity of, their siblings, their pets, their family members. I mean, just their hometown, and so we do see a bit of homesickness in those first couple of weeks, and sometimes beyond that. And so, parents, as much as possible, staying in contact with their students during the first couple of weeks is really helpful, to one, just help them navigate all the new things they're experiencing, and just reminding them that there's home to go back to. There are folks who are back home rooting for them, and again, encouraging them to connect with resources on campus, such as their administrative dean, uh, such as the counseling center, connecting with new people, making new friends, exploring campus. So homesickness is to be expected, or as expected, one of the things we do see a lot of in the first semester, and sometimes beyond that. Adjusting to eating in the dining hall. So, not being home where in some cases, your parents are cooking all your meals for you, or, you have access to just a plethora of dining options. Adjusting to the dining hall situation on campus for some people, especially if, they have very specific taste, that can be a challenge for folks as well. The good thing is we have options on campus within the dining hall, as well as a really what's the word I'm looking for? A dining staff that's really open to working with students, right? A dining hall staff that, if students start submitting recipes, or if students, walk up to one of them and say, hey, I'd love to see this, that they have a suggestion box right outside where students pay to enter. So the adjustment is hard, but it's one of those things that, it's college, it's a part of the experience. And I know the staff does an exceptional job of trying to feed our students a variety of meals.
It's interesting that you say that. One thing that I see sometimes that parents come to me with is that their student will call and say, there's nothing to eat, there's nothing there. And that becomes something that becomes a focus, right? Like, I just can't find anything I like. I can't find enough to eat. I'm hungry. I'm eating out all the time. Sometimes what's happening, and this is just a tip for parents, is there's something else going on, that the food becomes the focus, but it's really that they are homesick, or they're feeling like they're not making friends and they feel intimidated to walk into the dining hall alone. So a few prompting questions of like what's really going on behind that notion of mealtime. Like, it isn't just about going and getting the food. It is a social moment. It is a change if your taste is very specific or the food is very different from what you're used to. So some helpful conversations around that, trying to find out a little bit more about why the student might be upset, is a good tip for parents to think about if their student comes to them.
Yep, that's true. Social life is something else we talk a lot about with or first year students. So first semester, again, we're back to trying to make friends, and it's always interesting, in our dean's office, where everybody has their perception of everybody else's experience, and half the time it never matches up. And so, so students will see, what they think is like this, again, the group of 5 friends that always seem to have something to do and always seem to have somewhere to go. But in reality, those 5 people are also dealing with the homesickness, are also trying to find something to do. And so there's this assumption that everybody around them is having much more fun, or having a more active social life, when in reality everybody's is trying to figure it out. And so we do get a lot of students coming in talking about the social life, the adjustment to college, what is there to do on campus, beyond campus. And there is so much, to do. It's just for students to seek it out. And so, to parents, encouraging our students to try new things, and to, again, going back to the campus events calendar to see what's there, talking to professors, faculty members about what they're offering, whether it be in the form of lectures or trips off campus. Within the residence halls, we have the CLs that are putting on, the community leaders, are RAs, leaders in the residence halls, that are putting on events. Within our commons system, we have the Commons Council putting on events. So there's always something to do. And so encouraging your students to find those things to do. And one of the things I like to tell people, if you are looking for something and you've searched high and low for this one social thing and you can't find it, it's okay to reach out to your leaders on campus, your links, your CLs, and say, hey, I want to do this. And then getting some help planning some of the things, our students want to see. So encouraging them to search out what's available, and encouraging them to not to be afraid about taking a leadership role and planning some of the things that they haven't seen on campus.
Thank you.
That also reminds me, a lot of times, students have to put themselves out there, which takes a lot of bravery, right? You can walk into an event by yourself, and that can be scary and awkward, but you're going to be welcomed at that event, and you're going to have the opportunity to meet people at that event if you introduce yourself. But you do have to put yourself out there, and it can be hard for students to think about texting someone they might not know well and seeing if they're up to grab dinner, right? And they may be scared to do that because they're concerned about getting rejected, right? But if that's the worst thing that can happen, and it's probably not going to happen, isn't it worth trying? Because even if that person might not want to eat dinner with you, they're not going to probably say that. They're probably going to say, oh, I can't, I'm busy, right? But chances are they may be looking for someone to eat dinner with, and like your text is what gets them to go to the dining hall too. But it can feel like you might be the only one that has to do that, but that's not the case at all. Colgate students do a great job, Dean Hunter was just saying, right, in putting on this air of like, everything is great and everything is perfect, and I've been here 10 days and I've got this figured out. And really, they're just like those ducks underwater paddling as fast as they can, just like everyone else, because it takes time to find your stride, and you do have to go outside of your comfort zone a bit. But students will be rewarded for doing that.
That's very cool. I also was thinking about something that's, I've been at Colgate for a long time, and in the past, I think, 6 or 7 years, we've had the residential commons. So knowing that students are coming in, a member of a commons, each commons has its own flavor. They host events. They have all sorts of opportunities for students to get to know the people in their residence halls, on their floors. And also within their commons, the students in the other buildings in their commons, that's like a ready-made community for them, and it's done very purposefully. So just wanted to mention that as something that is a great point to talk to students about, like, what's going on in your commons, because there's always something going on.
Yeah.
Kerra, what other things happen in the first semester?
Academic pressures, I think that's to be expected. And Sarah mentioned before about, adjusting to just the academic life in general. And, a lot of these students, or all these students, were the top of their high school class, right? So we have really smart students who still have to take some time to adjust to the style of teaching, their style of learning, resources, the classrooms, each other's, the professors. And with that comes a lot of pressure, not only, internal pressure that they place on themselves, to meet a standard that they've set for themselves, but sometimes external pressure, based on what they think their peers are doing, or, sometimes based on families and parents, right? And so we do see a lot of that pressure come, it boiling up for students, especially if their first semester or their first test doesn't go as well as they thought it was going to go, or as well as they hoped it was going to go. And so we do see a lot of students struggling through, I guess, rediscovering, themselves, when it comes to their academic talents, and rediscovering themselves, or discovering themselves in this new place, with these standards of this university, with the systems and the supports that are here. And so we do see a lot of that in the first semester. We tell students, it's learning. You are learning. You don't always have to get the perfect grade. It's about the process. It really is about the process. And what's important in all of it is nobody thinks any less of you. I always remind my students, it's okay. This was a hiccup. We're going to keep going. And so, for parents too, it does help. It goes such a far way when they get that message from the families as well, to say, we're still, you've earned your place at Colgate. You're there at Colgate because you deserve it. You've earned it, and you can handle it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be perfect. Just do your very best. And so if parents can, or family can, reaffirm or help us, get that message across to students, it will absolutely go a far way.
And students will be successful here. It's just going to be a transition for many of our students, because they may be used to receiving assessments and grades based on effort, where that will not happen in college. It's not going to matter how much time you put in necessarily. What is going to be important is how you can take ideas and synthesize them together. And you're not it's not going to be the case where you can just memorize a bunch of things and come out of an exam with an A plus. Really, your faculty members, regardless of what you're studying, are going to ask you to engage with new material and think about it in different ways and combine it with different material, and ask you to really be engaged in kind of that learning and discovery process, which can be quite different from what people's high school assessments were like.
So if a student feels like they're struggling, they got their first failing, like a failing grade on their first test, or they wrote a paper and they got a lower grade than they thought, and they're feeling really upset or down or disappointed, like, do they go to you? Do they go to their advisor? Do they go to their professor? Like, what do they do, and how can parents support them in sort of getting through that moment?
I encourage my students to go to all of the above.
Okay.
It's super important for students to have conversations with the professors that are teaching the classes, and it also helps the professors remember who you are. So I'd say all of the above. The academic advisor is there, in many cases to add additional support and to help, them explore that long-term plan academically. And so I think it's super important that that advisor early on, can help them or talk them through, next steps. And then for us, in our role, it's a little bit off those things, plus just the added layer of support and encouragement that most of our students actually really need. Just a little bit of extra encouragement to say it's okay, it's all right, let's just keep going. And again, connecting to resources. How many times did you speak to a tutor? Did you take advantage of office hours? Have you been studying? So the combination of everybody, I think, helps better prepare them for the next test and hopefully the better grade.
And Colgate has such amazing free resources to students, right? There are peer tutors available for many of our courses that students can sign up for. There is a wonderful resource on campus called the Writing and Speaking Center that will assist students in preparing their classroom presentations or their written papers or essays or assignments. And so faculty office hours, right? If a student has a question, or they're finding it difficult to work through an assignment, that's what those office hours are there for. Their faculty members are here at Colgate because they want to teach undergraduates and they want students to show up in office hours and ask questions. And that only benefits the student for all of the reasons Dean Hunter just mentioned. And we know that that can sometimes be intimidating. And so we can certainly help students think through that, but you don't have to go to office hours and have a 20-minute script prepared. Really, you just need to have a question. And that opens up the door to have a conversation with your faculty member.
That's great. Thank you. Is there anything else that either of you want to talk about in terms of the first semester and what parents might see their students encountering?
And I mean, quickly, just, it's a new place, it's a new experience. They are growing adults. And so a lot of our students are coming in, they're exploring their identities. They are, trying new things. They're going to be facing uncomfortable situations in some cases. Um, it's new and they don't know, they still need help. I think, to simplify it, all of it is new and there's so much that they're experiencing for the first time. And so, being willing and open to ask the questions of, your students, what's new, what are you learning, what's made you uncomfortable this week, just asking questions and being there to support them through this new journey, because it's a lot, and they're still learning and they're still growing.
It sounds like what you're saying is that part of the message is it's okay to be uncomfortable, and maybe we even want them to be uncomfortable
Yes,
because that's where the learning and the growth comes.
absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think one other thing that's important for parents and caregivers to know is that because it is such a transition and because your student is still getting their footing, when they talk to you, they're going to be talking about the things that are uncomfortable and the things that are been hard to navigate and the things that are frustrating. And so it is very common that all you may be hearing from your student is, negative, 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 negative. And part of that may just be they don't have a place that they can vent, or they don't want to come off to their peers as someone that's complaining, right? Because they're still trying to put effort into building strong friendships on campus. And so don't be afraid if that seems to be your student, because chances are good things are happening too. They're just not telling you about them. They're sharing those with their friends on campus.
Right. So let's shift gears one more time. We wanted to spend a little bit of time thinking about, beyond that first week or the first semester, to just advice that you both, as deans who work with students, think all students and their families should know. Sarah, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think certainly knowing that if a student doesn't know where to turn, starting with their administrative dean can be a great starting point, because it doesn't matter if you're in your first semester or your last semester, you may come across a challenge that you've never faced before, and let us help you try to figure out, okay, what are the next best steps. And sometimes that means that we meet with a student once and help get them connected to an important resource on campus. Sometimes it means we may have, be checking in with a student every other week just to seeing how things are going, because they may be having a really challenging experience that semester through no fault of their own, but we want to make sure that they have all the support that they need. And so, and we're also spend a lot of time just giving students advice, right? If they're not sure how to have that conversation with their roommate, or if they're not sure how to engage that faculty member and asking a question that they might have. Or it can just be demystifying the great resources that are available on campus. I feel like I spend a lot of days talking about how stinking helpful our librarians are, and how easy they've made it to access them through text, through email, through scheduling meetings. Like, they are the most accessible people on campus, and why students aren't taking advantage of asking a librarian, I will never know, but that is something I talk to students a lot about.
So what about the notion that we were talking earlier, and I think this carries through, that a lot of the things that you end up talking to students are about those uncomfortable moments. And sometimes they just may want to vent, but sometimes they might need someone to guide them on what to do. But how do you approach that? Like, how do you help a student who's really struggling with something?
Yeah, I think we try to listen. I think we try to provide a space where the student can tell us kind of what's going on and how they've already thought about it, and just reassure them that their kind of line of thinking is right on, and they've been able to come up with a plan, and let us help them execute that plan, or just give them some confidence in that plan. I think sometimes when students get stressed out, and it's inevitable that you're going to be stressed at some point in college, the things that slip are the things that can actually make things easier, right? So the first thing they do is they skip a meal, or they go to bed super late and then force themselves to get up after 3 hours of sleep. That's just about the worst thing you can do, really making sure that you're taking care of yourself in some pretty basic ways. Sleeping and eating, and making sure that you're getting out to walk around, right? Like, those seem pretty fundamental and basic things, and all of our students know they should be doing those things to take care of themselves. But when you ask them when the last time they had a meal was, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they haven't eaten yet, well, no wonder things feel like a struggle right now, right? You haven't set yourself up in a way that you've given yourself the opportunity to get some wins today. And so let's go back to the basics, so that that's only going to help you be better able to figure out what you need to do next. I think a lot of times we're talking to students about how to break big problems, whether that's a homework assignment or an issue with a peer, into littler pieces that seem more manageable. And you don't necessarily have to solve everything immediately or right now, but like, what's one thing you could do to kind of move things forward, right? How do you start to tackle this assignment so all of a sudden all these other parts of it look much more manageable because you've broken it down into little pieces, all of which you're capable of doing. And so, yeah, I think those are some of the things we spend some time talking with students about, and trying to help guide them in the best way that we can.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Sarah. I was also thinking about there may be some moments when parents do feel like they need to call school, or that maybe you feel like there's contact with parents that may become necessary. Kerra, maybe you could talk a little bit about when do you get involved with contacting parents? Does that ever happen?
It does happen. And actually, if we in the dean's office ever think a student is in jeopardy, or their Colgate career is in jeopardy, we will contact parents, absolutely. If I think across the board, parents are, in my mind and in the mind of all our deans, an added layer of support and resource for a student. And so we will reach out to parents, if they're struggling academically, if we have reason for concern, we do reach out. I do want to, also mention that we have to be mindful of the privacy laws that are in place around what we can share before getting, explicit confirmation or permission from students. But I assure you that every single dean in the dean's office look at parents as that added layer of support, or that resource that has the full picture of the student from birth to here. And so, we will reach out to students, their parents, or guardians. As Dean Jones mentioned, we are the student's administrative dean for 4 years. So in some cases, we become very familiar with the students and the parents, because we're here for the entire journey. We're here to support them, and through anything. We talk about how we support students with their social concerns, academic, career pressures, just about anything. And it's interesting. It's always interesting when I run through the list of types of conversations I've had with a student, because I tell them there's nothing that we haven't heard. But if a student is in jeopardy or of any sort, if we're concerned about their future at Colgate, we reach out to parents. We do.
And their health and safety as well, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I know I speak for the entire dean staff, is we encourage them to communicate with their parents often and honestly. And so in a lot of our conversations, we'll say, hey, so what does your family think of this? Or have you had a conversation with them? Or, I'm thinking of reaching out to so-and-so. I think they would really appreciate if they heard it from you first. And so we help students navigate that space. But 100% parents are, for us, in our list of resources that help us to make sure students are having a successful Colgate experience and the best experience.
Let's flip that too. Like when should a parent think about calling Colgate? They can always call me first. I will always connect them to an administrative dean, their student's dean, or if their dean's not available, someone else. But if should they ever call your office first? How would you say is the best way to go there, and when?
I think we're happy to take information at any time, especially because it can only be helpful, right? And so if a parent or guardian knows their student is struggling, but knows their student hasn't told anyone about that, or isn't necessarily doing something about that, that would be a perfect time to be in touch with the dean, because we can often kind of work some magic and get students into our offices without there being a reasoning behind it, right? We're just friendly people that want to get to know our advisees. So if your student happens to get to the top of our list, how are they ever going to know otherwise, right? Most of the times we don't have to do that, because the parent has already told the student, look, I think we need to, let's get someone that can help involved, and let's figure this out together. But if we do need to do that, we certainly can. But I would say certainly our office likes hearing from families, especially when they're concerned about a student or they feel like their student is just having difficulty navigating what is next. We're not going to do things for students, just like we're not going to ask parents to do things for students. We're going to work to help the student move forward in the best way possible and to provide any assistance that we can.
Yeah, I guess I would echo what you were just saying and add that, I am here as a resource as well for parents. If they aren't sure where to turn or they aren't sure who to call, they can always call or email me, and I will advise. Assuming it's not a crisis moment, most often I'm going to respond in a way that helps you empower your student to manage what's going on. That's the best way for them to learn and grow. But I want to do it in a way that everyone in the family understands what the resources are and who on campus can help their student. So that's what we're here for.
Yeah. And if it is a crisis moment, parents and guardians should be in contact with campus safety, who's available 24/7, 365, to let them know what's going on and what they might need. And campus safety can take things from there.
Great. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
This is a line I've used for years, and I tell families this all the time. We're here for the full journey. We're here to see them all the way across that stage of graduation, and so we're invested. We want what's best for them. We want to see them grow. We absolutely want them to be successful. And I think Dean Jones just said we're all nice people. That's actually true. But we're all so invested in their success. And so I hope that parents will see us as a resource, in the way we see them as resources as well. But we're here to see them get across that stage and to be wonderful, brilliant contributors to society beyond Colgate.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you for this great conversation. That wraps it up for us today.
Thank you.